From time to time in WWE, a superstar can be heavily punished for things beyond their control. From backstage politics to real-life events, these can have drastic consequences on a WWE superstar's career and can even lead them to losing their spot on the card or, even worse, be fired. But which wrestlers were they? Well, join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 WWE superstars who were unfairly punished by WWE. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Also be sure to check us out on TikTok. Number 10. Jim Ross. Now, although not officially in-ring talent, he has had a few matches, the legendary Jim Ross was fired by WWE in 2013 for one of the most ridiculous reasons possible. The incident in question took place back at a SummerSlam weekend, and JR was put in charge of moderating a WWE 2K14 panel featuring WWE legends, and one of these legends was Ric Flair. Flair was intoxicated during the panel and he was acting inappropriately, as Flair tends to do. Flair would go off on tangents to criticize WWE booking, and he even mentioned TNA, which was a big no-no. But instead of punishing Flair for making the company look bad, they decided to blame JR for failing to control him, and this led to JR unfairly being fired from the company. Number 9. Mark Henry. In 1996, WWE signed Mark Henry to a lucrative 10-year deal. They had high hopes for the Olympian and they planned to make him a top star. However, as Henry's contract went on, WWE realized they had made a mistake and they simply didn't want him in the company. Henry was regularly injured and they weren't getting the return on their investment that they had initially expected. According to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer, WWE's idea was to give Henry embarrassing characters and storylines during the Attitude Era. This included numerous romantic storylines, including one with Mae Young. WWE hoped that this would force Henry to quit, but it didn't work. Henry remained in the company beyond 2006 and eventually won the World Heavyweight title in 2011. Number 8. John Morrison. John Morrison is one of the most athletic and gifted superstars to ever step foot in a WWE ring. Although Morrison had a decent WWE run, having won the Intercontinental Championship, ECW Championship and Tag Team Championship, he could never push through to win the big one. Now, the reason for this is simple. It was because during Morrison's relationship with Melina had an affair with top WWE superstar Batista. Now, this clearly wasn't Morrison's fault and everyone should have been on his side. However, WWE Chairman Vince McMahon saw things differently. Vince believed that Morrison should have attempted to fight Batista for his actions, and his lackluster approach to the affair made him look weak and timid. Vince decided to punish Morrison by never giving him that major push that fans wanted, and it is said that this incident completely ruined Morrison's chances of ever becoming a WWE main eventer. Number 7. Chris Jericho. When Chris Jericho debuted in WWE in 1999, his first notable feud was against the 9th wonder of the world, Chyna. Although Chyna was credible, she wasn't the best in-ring talent and the matches were often poorly received. Therefore, when Jericho began to wrestle Chyna, the matches were rather underwhelming and this made Vince McMahon extremely angry. Vince had high hopes for Jericho and Vince was annoyed that the matches with Chyna weren't delivering. Now, this wasn't really Jericho's fault as the matches were at the level fans expected from Chyna during this time. Vince punished Jericho by verbally berating him backstage, and he would mention how Jericho's contract wasn't worth the paper it was written on. Vince's solution was to tell Jericho that if he couldn't have a good match with X-Pac, he couldn't have a good match with anybody. Luckily for Jericho, the match with X-Pac was much better and Vince slowly changed his opinion on the first undisputed champion. Number 6. Dawn Marie. Dawn Marie is mostly known for her controversial storyline with Tori and Al Wilson during the Ruthless Aggression era. But Dawn isn't actually known for a rather public scandal which saw WWE fire her for getting pregnant. The infamous firing occurred back in 2005 as Dawn was under contract and she would enter an established period of maternity leave. WWE decided to fire her whilst on this leave, which was ethically and legally wrong. Dawn quite rightly sued the WWE as WWE had punished her for simply getting pregnant and she had done nothing wrong whatsoever. The two parties would settle out of court and it was believed that Dawn received a substantial payoff for WWE's ridiculous act. Although WWE were clearly in the wrong, it was clear that they believed that they were justified in their actions, and this would explain why Dawn was virtually blacklisted from WWE following the legal claim being filed. The former WWE star has never appeared or even been mentioned on programming since her departure, which goes to show how petty WWE can truly be. Number 5. Bart Gun. The Brawl for All tournament during the Attitude Era was one of the worst ideas to ever been executed on WWE television. It featured shoot boxing fights between WWE superstars, and it actually resulted in a number of superstars getting legitimately hurt. The concept failed as there was zero interest from fans in seeing boxing on a WWE show. Nevertheless, although all fights were completely legitimate, WWE still had an intended winner in mind. That winner was Dr. Death Steve Williams. These plans were halted though when Bart Gun knocked out Williams in the second round, and Gun would actually go on to win the entire tournament. WWE had big plans to push Williams, and there were even rumors at the time that this was going to lead to a match against Stone Cold Steve Austin. Gun winning the tournament wasn't an outcome that they expected or wanted, as they had zero plans to feature him in meaningful storylines. WWE though decided to unfairly punish Gun by having him face legitimate boxer Butterbean at WrestleMania 15. This resulted in Gun getting knocked out in 44 seconds, and Gun's WWE career was pretty much dead in the water following the knockout punch, as he would be fired from the company shortly after WrestleMania. Number 4. Matt Hardy. In 2005, one of the biggest scandals in WWE history was unraveled as it surfaced that superstars Lita and Edge were having an affair behind Matt Hardy's back. Lita and Matt were dating at the time, and as you can imagine, Matt was furious. Matt responded to the news of the affair by making a number of public comments on the internet about the matter. In WWE's mind, this was inappropriate conduct from Matt. They believed that he had handled it the wrong way and that he needed to act more professional. But instead of simply trying to help him through the most difficult time of his life, WWE decided to outright fire him. The backlash to the firing was severe as fans knew what had happened, and they began to hijack Raw with chants over "We want Matt," and this was particularly prominent during the segments involving Edge and Lita. Eventually, the crowd response was causing such a problem for WWE that they decided to bring Matt back into the company. He would enter into a feud with Edge, and the two would embark on one of the most personal feuds of all time. Number 3. Titus ONeil. The February 6, 2016 edition of Raw featured the retirement ceremony of Daniel Bryan. Bryan came down to the ring as he believed that he was never going to be able to wrestle again, but thankfully a number of years later he would get the all clear, and now the retirement segment is mostly known for a WWE superstar getting suspended. As following Bryan's retirement promo, the roster including Vince and Stephanie McMahon would come onto the stage to applaud Bryan, but once he made his way down to the locker room, the roster would follow suit. However, Titus ONeil decided to playfully grab Vince's arm as he was leaving. It was believed that Titus was just playing around and that he was implying with the grab that Vince should let Stephanie go before him. But Vince was in no mood for fun as he had just seen one of his top stars retire. As a result, Titus would be suspended for 90 days, which was later reduced to 60 days, and Vince actually wanted to fire the former tag team champion before he was eventually talked out of it. This was no doubt a massive overreaction on the part of Vince, and thankfully it looked like Vince and Titus managed to repair the relationship in the years that followed. Number 2. Muhammad Hassan. Muhammad Hassan was set for a major push in the summer of 2005. He was being presented as one of the top heels in WWE, and there were rumors at the time that he was even going to defeat Batista to win the world title. This would have made Hassan the youngest world champion in history. However, this all changed after WWE decided to air a controversial segment on the day of the 7/7 London attacks. The segment saw Hassan begin to prey on the ramp, and this summoned 5 masked men, and they were armed with clubs and piano wire, and they began to choke The Undertaker out. The masked men would then lift Daivari above their heads and carry him away. Although WWE defended the segment, sponsors as well as SmackDown's TV network UPN weren't happy. And due to the pressure from UPN, WWE decided to drop the Hassan character altogether and write him off television for good. This wasn't Hassan's fault as he was just doing his job. Hassan was then unfairly fired from WWE in September 2005, as WWE felt it would be easier if they distanced themselves from Hassan rather than repackage him as a new character. And number 1. Daniel Bryan. When news broke in summer 2010 that WWE had fired Daniel Bryan, fans were bewildered. Bryan was a key part of the Nexus WWE debut, and they were unsure what had caused WWE to fire him. It turned out during the Nexus Invasion segment that Bryan began to choke Raw ring announcer Justin Roberts with his own tie. WWE had ordered Nexus to attack Roberts in the segment, but unfortunately this angered WWE sponsors. Sponsors felt like it was in breach of PG guidelines, and they weren't happy that it aired on live television. WWE decided to punish Bryan by outright firing him, and this was a complete overreaction as Bryan was just following orders. But once the pressure from sponsors died down, they eventually brought Bryan back. However, the initial decision to fire him is still heavily criticized to this very day. But there you have it folks, 10 WWE superstars who were unfairly punished. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.